Good morning, everyone. It's time for the weekend wrap up, the news that matters here on Shelbyville Now, June 28th, Saturday, coming at you live this morning. I'm David Thomas, Mr. Josh Blevins. Josh, you had a pretty busy week going out to a lot of meetings and
I
a
had
lot of
a
activities.
very busy week. We got a lot to cover today. So, yep, not no clips, but we're going to talk a lot. So, and I just pre-warning for those that are easily offended, we are going to say some controversial things today.
Surely
So,
not.
I know, shocking,
Never,
shocking from us, but
Well,
we've got a few things to say. We're going to get them off our chest.
if common sense is controversial, I guess that's what it'll be then.
I guess.
All right. Well, before we dive into all this stuff, Josh, let's hear from our sponsors, Dennis Young Insurance and Leverage Power Washing. Two great sponsors. Let's pause and hear from them, and we'll be right back.
Yep.
Get the results you want with the personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency, insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 1988.
All righty. Welcome back in here to the weekend wrap up. Josh, I know you got one piece of news that you want to jump on first because it's probably the headliner.
Probably the headliner. Normally we run through the week from Monday to Friday, but every once in a while there's one that just jumps out at you. And I hate to bury the lead story and put it at the end.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump to the end of the week, and we're going to be a little backwards this week. So Thursday evening, the very last meeting that I attended this week was the Combination County Finance meeting, followed by the County Commission meeting. Short story of it is they adopted the county annual budget, and it was voted on unanimously, and there was no tax increase. And that is most of what you're going to hear of the story, from the normal news sources, as it were. But we're going to go a lot deeper than that.
Right.
So at that meeting, there was an attempt that I will just go right out and say that I was a large part of, to make an amendment to the county budget this year. And that attempt was shut down before it even got to a vote. And what was stated on the floor, a couple things. If you were not in the room, you can't find out exactly what went on, because if you go and watch the recording, the big part of what happened there did not make it on the recording because there was no microphone on the county attorney. So the ruling that was made there, you can't hear it on the recording.
Yeah, I watched this online because I most of the time I can't get up there in person. So I try to watch these as they unfold, and I'm just not a lip reader.
Yeah.
I mean, so what's the point? I mean, I said, well, there's a meeting. Okay. They're actually having a meeting according to this live stream. And I trust that that's really happening.
There was
with
a
5-second delay.
There was.
But I could not read lips, Josh. So I really don't know what happened. Why don't you tell us?
I'm going to give you and I wish, normally I bring an audio recorder of these things. I was kind of counting on the YouTube myself. So that's why we don't have clips, because the parts that are important are not clippable.
Right.
The ruling that was made by the parliamentarian was that the motion that was brought to the floor to amend the budget was an improper motion. So as the parliamentarian, obviously that's his job to rule on motions. He ruled that way. And I'll say on the front end, John T. has forgotten more about county law than I'll ever learn in my lifetime. He's been doing this a long time, and he knows way more about this than I do. But I did some searching after I left the meeting. I read back through the 1981 Act a number of times. I read through our county financial policies. I cannot find anywhere in there, and he didn't reference the rule that he was using to shut down the motion, which was Basically, in a nutshell, what he said was the county commission is not allowed to adjust individual items within the budget. They're only allowed to either vote yes or no on the budget, or they're allowed to adjust the total at the bottom and then send it back to the finance committee,
Okay.
where only the finance committee can make
All right.
changes
I
to
got
the
a
individual
question.
items.
A couple years ago, it was changed on the floor at the meeting, and we got a tax increase.
They changed the tax rate. They did not change the budget at that meeting. So they
Right.
changed the tax rate. So yeah, they found a way to increase taxes on the floor, but
This was
yeah.
going to remain neutral as far as any type of change to the bottom line budget. It was
Right.
just shifting. It was
it
shifting.
was moving
money
numbers around.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. Let me get to my
Okay.
my reasoning as not a county attorney, not an
All right.
attorney that plays on TV,
All
not
right.
one that plays anywhere.
You're not Matlock.
I'm not Matlock. I'm not Perry Mason, but this is from the 1981 Act. This is the only thing I found that gets close to what was mentioned on the floor as far as a rule on the budget process. This is TCA 5-21-111 on budget hearings. This is a portion of the 1981 Act, which Bedford County falls under. This is, I'm quoting section E1 here. The first part, which leads to the position I'm going to take from my reading, is it says the county legislative body may alter or revise the proposed budget except, so these are the exceptions, as to provisions for debt service requirements and for other expenditures required by law. So again, not an attorney, not Matlock. It does say may alter or revise. Now, here's the section that was basically the wording that our county attorney used on the floor. It says, however, when reviewing the proposed budget of the County Department of Education, the county legislative body may only alter or revise the total amount of expenditures. So if you're on the school budget, which you don't want to be a political issue, the county commission has no
limits.
say over
Right.
the items in the school budget. All they can do is adjust the amount of money that goes to the school system.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But it says, in this reading of at least this one section here, it says the county legislative body may alter or revise the proposed budget. So that is my non-legal reading of that. And again, John T. probably has 3 other TCAs that I'm hoping that he'll give to us
All
later that have other rules in there. But that was the only one I found that was close
And
to what he
where
was
is
saying.
this located? If somebody were to want to go find it.
Well, you could just search for TCA 5-21-111.
Okay, and
that's under
TCA
the-
is what?
That's
Tennessee
Tennessee
Code
Code
Annotated.
Annotated. So
That's our law.
That's
Right.
my non-legal
Okay.
legal argument. My other argument to against the position that he took was, if you take the position that he took to his logical conclusion, which is that the county commission cannot alter any items in the budget, all they can do is adjust the total and send it back to the finance committee. At that point, you made the finance committee the only body that can make any budget changes, substantive budget changes as far as actual items. That then makes the county commission, the elected body, subsidiary to the finance committee.
Okay.
The finance committee is then accepting recommendations from the county commission, but they are the final say on what the budget is. The county commission is then only able to vote yes or no. And at that point, the county commission is just a decorative, we're doing this for show. They have no
Right.
say
There's
in
no
anything.
point
So,
in the vote.
there's no point in the vote. Well, there is.
could
You have to
no
say yes
it.
or no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say
Yeah.
that you're going through this process, like we're reading off all the resolutions, and somebody did come up, and there were like 12 people, 12 commissioners say, wait a minute, we want to change this. You're saying based on that ruling, they can't do it.
Okay,
On the floor, it has to go back.
So another point that he made was the parliamentarian can be overruled. So he did give the option to Commissioner Maddox, who brought the motion. He
Right.
said, if you can get 2/3 of the people in this room to agree with you, you can override my ruling. Well, obviously, Commissioner Maddox didn't even push on that. You're not going to get 2/3 of people to disagree with the county attorney that's sitting up there in front. So it's, I mean, that's a pointless vote. So what ended up happening, and I talked to a couple people after this happened over the weekend at the some things I went to, and they said, "Oh, he didn't even get a second." It didn't get to a second because the ruling had been made by the parliamentarian that the motion was improper. Nobody's going to talk back to the county attorney and say, "Oh, you're full of crap. I'm going to make a second anyway."
Yeah,
So
yeah.
He once he made that ruling, it killed the motion.
Right.
So, couple other points I want to make before we get into the actual reasoning with the motion. A couple pushbacks I saw on Facebook were why was it waited till this meeting to make the motion? Why didn't you raise the issue earlier on? A big part of this motion was based on the ROI numbers that were received back from the partnership. They gave, at a meeting we covered 2 weeks
Right,
ago, the
we
very
talked
first
about
week of June, they gave at a meeting an ROI number of 327.61%. At that meeting, the very beginning of June, the commissioners asked for detail to how they came to that number. I mean, that was just an arbitrary percentage. We harped on that for a whole show one time.
Yeah.
So they didn't get that information to the county commission until Friday, which would have been June 20th.
Right.
Even then, they were given this spreadsheet here, which has at least the math to get to that number,
Right.
but it didn't have explanation of what these items were down the left. So they said, hey, good job, your math works, but what are these things? Explain, how you got to each of these numbers.
Right.
The final explanation received back came in Tuesday. So between Tuesday and Thursday, there was no additional meeting to get this out. Thursday was the time to do it. It was the only option.
Right.
So let's dig into the actual motion that didn't actually get voted on, but we'll give a little bit. If you want to read the full thing, we reposted. Commissioner Maddox laid it out very clearly
Right.
what he was trying to do. Basically, in a nutshell, the motion was to take a portion of the money that was dedicated to the Shelbyville-Bedford Partnership, use that money to fund nonprofit requests that have been turned down in this year's county budget. Just real quick, a couple of the nonprofits, because people had asked, were the Community Development Center, Tennessee Rehab Center, Skills Development Center, Senior Citizen Center, the Public Library, the Soil Water Conservation Service, Tennessee Backroads Heritage, 7 volunteer Bedford County fire stations, the Arts Council, Haven for Hope, and the Tony Rice Center. So this was an idea to help get them funding that they were not otherwise going to get. Some of the reason that it was attempted this way was that other than this attempt, which didn't get to a vote, the county commission got no say in that decision of did these people get their money
Right.
or did they not.
Right.
This decision was made exclusively at the administrative level. I talked to some sources in the finance department. This was not even a recommendation for the finance department. The finance department was told, do not put this funding in this year's budget. So they didn't. And the finance committee didn't question it. There were no questions raised. I attended every single one of those meetings. None of them asked a question about why did we not fund these nonprofits. So this was an opportunity to at least hopefully get it to a vote. Again, I was a big part of organizing some of this. I spoke to a number of county commissioners before the meeting. I don't know that it could have gotten the votes to pass. We didn't get the opportunity to even get to a vote. I feel like between 8 and 10 votes, I think, would have been the amount that probably we could have gotten for these nonprofits. If it had hit that 10 number, it would have gotten in the budget. But once again, we didn't even get to a vote.
There's a lots of things to unpack here.
Yeah.
As you look at for reasoning for doing this,
Yeah.
I'm going to just give you my personal opinion. I don't think any nonprofits should get donations from taxpayer money. I think that the taxpayers themselves should decide where they
should be the ones picking.
But give them the opportunity, which we all do, have an opportunity to support those things that we'd like to support.
Yeah.
Okay, but to pigeonhole it to one and then not even consider the others, there's a lot of conflicts of interest going on here.
Which is a good reason not to fund nonprofits out of government money. And that is, on the flip side, because obviously I'm in the city government. Now, the city 2 or 3 years ago made that decision. They said, man, this is a political hot potato.
Right.
Do I want to decide how much more money the Tony Rice Center deserves than Skills Development Center, than the Haven of Hope? That's not something government should probably have their hands in. And the city doesn't fund them at all, other than the 3 that are required by law.
So here's my question. How long does the taxpayer keep staring at this middle finger we're getting from the administration and not do something about it? That's my question. I'm just putting it out there for people to talk about. We don't have to discuss that here, but we're not getting representation.
It didn't get to a vote. So yeah, and those are the people that we elected to represent us. So
Right. It's
they
not-
were
not
not
even-
allowed.
not
to,
even- it
it
was
didn't,
yes or no.
It didn't even get to a real debate.
It's yes or no,
because,
and
yeah.
they do that, and
Yeah.
they ball all this up together like that. So if you say no to the budget, you voted no against education.
Right.
That's the whole thing. That's the whole point of doing it. This sounds a lot like Washington.
It does a little bit. Real quick, and because we've already gone down a lot of controversial roads. We're going to dig into the ROI numbers real quick, and this was the whole reason
Right.
that they waited to do this, because we're waiting on these numbers from the partnership. And the final numbers that we got, again, we'll give the big number they gave, which was that they presented a 327% return on investment. So we talked about that a couple weeks ago. We're like 327% of what? So here's the calculation that they used, that they presented to the county commission. The partnership has received $1,009,000 in government contributions. They claim to have generated $3.3 million in return on that $1 million investment. So that's where we ask for more detail. All of this, and this is just my opinion, this is the opinion of other people who have looked at these numbers, but this is mine in particular, all of these numbers have been inflated. So
Of course.
they received $139,000 in tourism grants. We harped on this for several minutes in the previous show. They took that $139,000 number and multiplied it times 11. So based on a study that says on average you get $11 in return on tourism marketing. There's no reason to take that $139,000 and multiply it times 11, because the state of Tennessee puts out the real tourism numbers broken down by
Right.
county.
Right.
As we presented previously, Bedford County went up, I'm going to mess up this number, but I think I'm close, $69,000 in local tax revenue and tourism from year to year. 69,000, not 1.5 million. 69. That's a real number, straight from
And
the
let me tell you why.
Okay,
Because
straight for the
we
state
just
of
don't have a
Tennessee.
lot of tourism in Bedford County.
Well, and that's
Okay,
a whole,
all right,
that's a
all
whole
right.
other debate.
We don't have Disney World sitting out
That's
back,
a whole
all
other
right?
debate. Another number that they threw on here to add to that $3 million total, they said that they generated $1.1 million worth of grants if you weighted their participation in the list of grants. So they gave this list of grants. I'm just going to cover a couple of the big ones because it's a long list. Middle Mile grant, $6 million. This is the broadband grant. Google Bedford County broadband grant and tell me how many different politicians, groups,
Took
people,
credit for it.
individual have taken credit for this
I
$6
know it.
million
I know it.
broadband grant.
I know it.
This grant didn't go to the county. It didn't go to the city. It didn't go to the partnership. It went to United Communications. But I'm telling you, there are people that are going to run for office next year that their platform is going to be, I helped get this grant.
Exactly. And you know what?
Everybody-
People are going to believe that garbage.
Everybody takes credit for this $6
I know
million
it.
grant. You'd swear everybody that's in office now, personally went out and helped write that $6 million check. So there was another big one on here. The schools got a grant. Bedford County Schools got a $3 million Innovative Schools Models grant. They're taking credit for a portion of that. I don't know how much they participate. They don't give a percentage in here. Actually, they do. They give one number in here. They said their involvement led to a $63,000 cost savings, but somehow, we've inflated that till we got $1.1 million in grant revenue. Couple of these are honestly almost humorous. Sales and local taxes from wages. Our friends at Duxon, they're claiming, which they're taking full credit for them coming to town, which they were very instrumental in that, but they're claiming that Duxon has created 251 direct or indirect jobs.
I don't see anybody in the parking lot out there, Josh.
251 direct or indirect jobs. Those direct or indirect jobs are paying between $50,000 and $60,000.
Who's got these jobs?
I don't know, but if you make $50,000 to $60,000, the IRS says that you spend $950 in state sales tax a year, $373 in local tax a year, for a total of $1,323 in sales tax. Multiply that by the 251 jobs that are supposedly created, and they're taking credit for $332,000 in tax creation. Number one, I don't think there were 251 jobs. Number two, that $1,323 number they're using, that's including the state sales tax, which is going to the state of Tennessee. It's not coming to Bedford County and Shelbyville.
Yeah.
So they used the wrong number in the calculation. And then last, Duxon has made is going to make. They haven't even made all these. They have committed to making $40,000 in charitable donations within the city and the county between 2022 and 2025. So because they're doing that, they're including those $40,000 that came from Duxon that have gone to charities. One of the charities being the partnership themselves. Money that came from Duxon went to the partnership. That's their ROI that they're using in this calculation. So,
Josh,
long story short, they're taking a lot of claim for
Yeah.
a lot of things, and the numbers were inflated. So that, circling back around, that was the whole point of trying to get that amendment on the floor was, and I want to try to be a little more. I know we've been hard on the partnership there. They are doing things that are generating good results in the city, including some of the things they're doing at the foundation, the 5K. There are things going on that are good at the Chamber of Commerce. But
yeah, we got a map last week. It's pretty
the
nice.
map was very nice. There are things they are doing that are good, but their ROI number, which is what they're using to ask for government money here, in this case from the county, was super inflated. The amendment did not remove all of the partnership's money. It just gave them a donation at the county level that was more accurately relative to the actual ROI. And I will go even further than that. I will say that if they were asking for a donation that was more accurate to their ROI at the county level, which we'd place that at $40,000, that was not arbitrary. We actually did some math to get there. I feel like sitting on the city side of the equation, that the city would be willing to get back in and collaborate with the partnership if they were asking for a more reasonable number, like a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year donation instead of $100,000. I think we could have gotten both parties back together, worked together, gotten through some of this crap that's been going on between the city and the county, but this didn't even get to a vote. It got killed on the floor. It was done by a simple parliamentary move.
Right.
And now we're stuck in the same position we've been stuck at all this time. The county's giving them $100,000 this year. The
Yeah.
city's never going to give them $100,000 with the current state of affairs.
Right.
And we're just stuck in a tiff back and forth. So
Yeah.
that's my rant for
There's
the
not
day.
much of a partnership taking place.
There's no partnership taking
No
on at all.
partnership. Now,
So,
I think you can't single out the part. Well, you're making a blanket statement when you're talking about the partnership, since the Chamber of Commerce is under that umbrella.
right.
I think it should be pulled out separately, and they're going to get memberships. The more they do, and the better job they do, they're going to get more people joining that chamber. That's
And
the way it works.
And again, the chamber is doing great things. I went to a chamber event on Friday. I was the only person from the city that went to that event because, again, with the current state of things, there was no invitation that went from the chamber to the city government. So I showed up because it was publicly posted, and it affected a business within the city limits,
Right.
and I wanted to be there to support that business.
Right.
But if we were working together, that event would have had double or triple the attendance, and it would have had a number of city officials because there was a competing event at a different business within the city limits that the city put on. They also didn't invite the chamber, same thing. So the chamber people weren't at that one. You've got this back and forth going on in different locations all across the city, and quite frankly, it's ridiculous.
While if the city and county can ever sit at a table together, why wouldn't it be feasible to get an industrial recruiter and let the county pay half the salary, the city pay half the salary, some commissioners and some councilmen are in charge of a little committee that oversees that position and communicates. Have the Chamber of Commerce operating as separate. The partnership can go ahead and be a private entity that wants to donate to wherever they want to donate and do whatever they want to do, and people can donate, and we get the tax money out of that.
That is exactly how this started. If you go back to the history of the organization, at the very beginning, it was majority controlled by city and county. The board had, if you counted the membership from the city and county, they had control of the board. The city and the county together, collaboratively, had control of the board, and there were a few minority private members of the board that were not part of either city or county government. It's now been flipped on its head. It's now majority private control with a minority of government
Right.
control, and that's just the direction it's ended up, and we've ended up where we're at here today.
Yeah, I just feel like there needs to be oversight for taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
And there is none when you just throw $100,000 like that.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. All right.
So
That's another
that was-
scam, but the government does. You
Yeah.
know,
that was a lot, but and we probably went deeper and further than we should have there, but I just wanted to get as much of that as I could out into the public. And unfortunately, we don't have a way to. I love doing clips, and I wish we could have played some of the actual
Right.
verbiage that was used. And going back to the county attorney, he knows way more than I do. I hope he comes up with a statement and proves me wrong, because I'd like to see the TCA that he used to make the decision he did. I just couldn't find it, and probably I should have gone to law school, then I know what I was talking about. I don't. So let's go back to the rest of the week. This is the rest of the things. A lot more happened this week than just that. That was the one that stuck out to me. But Tuesday, we had on the city side of government, we had the final city budget vote. If you tune in and watch, we went a grand total of 10 minutes, and you might think,
Yep.
oh man, the city doesn't care about their budget.
same thing.
You
Y'all
gotta-
had all that.
You got to
Yeah.
go back and watch the 4-hour meeting and
Yeah.
the 2-hour meeting where the
And
actual
you
debate took
the
place.
city council actually got to discuss this in a public
Line
forum.
by line, we go
Right.
through line by line,
And the
even item
county
by
should
item.
do the same thing. They should take lessons from you guys. I'm just
Well,
saying.
I wouldn't push it that far. I mean, the county did have some meetings. There just
Yeah.
was no substantive
right,
discussion.
right.
Let me go back there real quick. I hate to go back to our previous story already, but I did want to point out a point I missed was part of the other discussion of why did you wait to bring this to the floor at the end. There was an attempt during the county budget process to make some changes to the budget, and I felt like it was a good attempt early on, which was Commissioner Boutwell gave a very strong speech at one of either the first or the second budget meeting on the poor state of education funding
Right.
in Bedford County.
Sure.
He had some great statistics. He had great information.
Again, there was audio problems with this, and we couldn't even hear that.
We couldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was good. And when I heard enough of that, we actually had a good discussion of it a couple weeks ago. And you know how far that went? Doing it at earlier on.
About the same. It's
It
about as
went
far as that went.
absolutely
Right.
nowhere. There was not a dime moved in the budget based on his very good observations that he had. It was brushed aside.
Josh,
So,
this is
yeah.
a pattern. One person runs out on a limb and they get it chopped off. All right, if our people, if our commissioners and council people, our representatives don't get behind common sense together, we're going to continue to have this. We're going to have this continual whirlpool of whatever it is.
Okay, all right, we got to move on. We're going to get stuck there. So on the city budget, so it lasted 10 minutes. If that was all you saw of the budget process, believe me, there was a lot more.
Oh,
and
of course.
and
yeah.
even the parts that you were able to see on YouTube, when I've mentioned this before, several of us city council people went and had individual budget meetings with departments. I had 9 individual private one-on-one meetings with department heads before we even went into budget season, preparing for the budget
you
season.
arming
So
yourself with information.
I was trying to get information
Right.
because I wanted to, make the best decision that I could. So, final city budget ended up $29.1 million in operational spending, $7.2 million in capital spending. Property tax rate remains the same at $1.48. The city of Shelbyville, after this year, will have a grand total between all departments, everything, $55,000 in debt. That's it. I've
That's
got more
pretty
personal
good.
debt.
That's
than
pretty
that.
good. That's pretty good.
The whole
Pretty good.
city, that's all they owe. So that will be paid off next year. And on top of that, there's $320,000 sitting in the debt reserve fund, which is the fund you use to pay the debt. So we got more money in the debt reserve than we owe.
Okay,
money overall.
debt reserve
So,
fund. What can that go toward?
debt.
Okay, let's say you borrow money
Yeah.
for something to do with a flume.
Right.
You can use that to pay off that somewhere down the road.
If you had to.
If
Yeah, you'd rather not. You'd rather keep your debt reserve fund. But if
Right.
you needed to, that's what it's there for.
Right.
It's a rainy day emergency. kind
Okay,
of
so
fund.
are there any plans to build this fund up on an annual basis?
It had been built up. We took some from it to pay the debt this year.
Right.
Yeah, now that the debt's paid off, but
You can-
let's get into
Okay, all right.
the challenges, because I don't think the debt's going to stay that way
I
for
don't
long.
think so.
The biggest challenge that I see that the city government faces, at least on the government side, I mean, we've got a lot of challenges in the city, but from city government side is we need a new public safety headquarters. This was the highest priority on the capital spending, whatever they want, whatever it's called, like going back 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's been on there. They keep listing as top, and nothing. We've not made enough ground. I don't want to say nothing's been done, because a lot's been done to try to do something, but nothing's been accomplished yet. We
Right,
don't own the
right.
property to put one on. We haven't, started. There's been some designs. I've seen designs of a headquarters, but until we have property, you can't build a building without having the property.
Not yet.
So that's one challenge. Another big challenge the city is facing is the fund balance is going in the wrong direction. We're still spending more than we're bringing in. So that's got to be that doesn't work long term. So we're not Washington. And then a part of why our spending and everything is going the wrong way is that as the city continues to grow, and a lot of people don't grasp this, as more people come into town, it costs government more to service those people than those people bring in.
Okay, so
in
that
tax
blows
revenue.
out the argument of the more rooftops we have, the better our financial situation is going to be. It's the reverse.
The math does not work.
Okay,
and that
so-
is not just in Shelbyville. That's not just in Bedford County.
So
You
I
look
can take
all
that.
around Middle Tennessee, and everybody pretty much in local governments is running into the same
and
problem.
I can take that fact right there and go, okay, what are we going to do about that?
We wish, and wishing ain't getting us anywhere, but we wish we could do an impact fee. The state government has shut down our ability to assess an impact fee. The only money that we get when somebody builds a new construction house in town, there's $1 a square foot that goes into a county fund to help with new school buildings. But let me tell you, a 1,500 square
Right.
foot house, that $1,500 does not cover the amount of school building
No.
it takes for their kids.
No.
And then our utility company assesses some charges like a sewer fee and a couple $1,000s for a fee to get them onto utilities on a big subdivision.
Right.
But other than that, all you get is the incremental property tax revenue. I looked at the numbers this year. I live in a neighborhood that's continuing to have new construction. If you take a starter home, which is a lot of what we're getting here in town, if you take a starter home, you look at what the property tax goes up to the year after that starter home gets built versus what the property tax was on the empty lot, you're looking at about, on the city side, $700 a year in extra tax revenue.
Ain't getting it done.
That $700 a year doesn't cover all the services that are used by that new family that moved into the city.
So there you go.
Yeah.
The math just don't
The math,
work.
the math is not math.
Okay, we
So-
are headed, Josh, county, city, all government entities are headed to a point of where the cost of operating just basic services are overrunning the revenue coming in. And the revenue coming in is going to start dwindling because people are going broke.
We're moving in a not great direction there. So
What's the
yeah.
answer, Josh? That's not the
Yeah.
answer today, but
Right.
that's the question I throw out to everybody.
It's a big question, and I'm not sure we have all the answers yet. So, but it's one we need to be asking before
Sure
it gets
enough.
too late to ask it. Sticking with the public safety headquarters, just a side note, same day right after the budget vote, I literally drove up the hill to sit in on the library board. One piece of property the city had been looking at and continues to
right.
follow is the property by the library.
Right.
I don't want to dig too deep into this, but I'll say I sat through that meeting and there was a lot of negative sentiment at that meeting from the board to this property
Of
deal
course.
moving
And
forward.
just
So,
follow, just connect the dots. You can see it. You can see where it's coming from. It all goes down to the polarization between the city and the county.
there was a lot of that there. There was discussion, and this is way before my time. This is before a lot of people I've talked to in government's time. There's a claim out there, and the city's actually looking to try to find if this is an accurate claim. The claim is that when the library was built, the county promised $1 million and the city promised $1 million towards the construction, and that the city somehow backed out of their promise. That is a story I've heard from a lot of different people. I don't know if that's a true story. It seems like it could be a true story. We haven't been able to find documentation of the commitment.
We seem to have a hard
Yeah.
time with documentation, and we also like to hold a grudge forever.
Yeah, and that's it. That's
it's
been a number of
pathetic.
years ago.
Our citizens deserve better than this, Josh. It's our citizens should require some adulthood here taking place at government level. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, that's all right.
I mean, it's
you're
pathetic.
not wrong.
It's pathetic.
You're not wrong. Tuesday, same day, afternoon, went to the county finance committee, financial management committee, which, as we talked about earlier, may or may not be running the county commission. Property tax numbers, we're 1.07 million ahead of last year with a month left in the year. Sales tax, we're up almost $1.5 million, 1.47 million from last year. Also up, sorry, In attorney fees, oddly enough, attorney fees, we
Okay.
spent the county spent $609,000 for the year, even though they only had $250,000.
Okay, that's the
budgeted.
county. What's the city spent? Probably about the same amount.
Yeah, I believe spent more. I don't have that number, so I don't want to quote a wrong one. But actually, it was mentioned at the budget meeting. They had to do a final budget amendment
Unbelievable.
at the county to cover the attorney fees. That's,
And here's the thing.
Yeah.
Who thinks this is okay? I want to know who really thinks, looking at that right there, and thinks that's okay.
I'll tell you who. The attorneys.
Besides
They
them,
like-
who thinks this is okay?
Nobody but the attorneys.
All right.
Nobody but the attorneys. And then
But
another,
yet it keeps getting voted on, and they keep doing it.
they keep spending
Keep doing it. You
They
didn't
keep
vote for it,
spending
though, did you?
I did
You
not.
did
I
not.
couldn't
Okay.
do it.
All right.
I couldn't.
Thank
couldn't.
you, Josh.
It's so wrong. And then just a side note, because people are always curious about this, and I hate to call somebody's salary out on the air, but
Well,
this is
taxpayer
public.
money.
It's public record.
It's taxpayer
So
money.
This was handed out. There was a question raised at the previous month's meeting of how much we paid our owner rep, which is our construction manager for the county, because
Right.
this has always been a bone of contention. For the current budget year, which is wrapping up, he made. Let me do the math. I'm gonna have to do this in my head real quick. $170,000 in commission.
Okay.
$12,000 of that was reimbursed by the 911 board because that was for their building, and then there was an additional $24,000 in salary, so that's going to put him at $194.
195 is what I
which,
got right
which
here.
makes him
The second highest-
second highest paid.
Second highest
he's,
paid.
He's always
county
touted as the
employee.
highest paid. He's second highest.
He's second highest. Okay,
Yeah,
he's
so
got a
second
ways to
highest.
go.
He's-
I'm sure we'll find some more construction work
He's
to
going
do.
to have to do more next year, or he will not move to the highest. So yeah, second highest paid. So those are the actual numbers. Those came from the finance.
An average person
Yeah.
sitting out here that's struggling to pay their grocery bill and struggling to pay the dadgum county taxes that's paying these salaries should be offended,
I'm sure some
immensely
of them Yeah.
offended that we've got officers, officials in our local government making 4 and 5 times their salaries, and they're the ones paying the bills.
are. There is definitely a lot of that sentiment. I'm not.
Now, don't get me wrong. I understand these people have to be paid for what they do.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the people that are paying the bills, looking at this, they're going, "What?"
Yeah. Yep. I hear you. Tuesday, same day, man, I had a lot of meetings Tuesday, was the County Planning Commission. They had one item on the agenda, which was a rezoning request of a piece of property just past Neverest Park. A developer was asking to rezone it to, I believe it was R1, which would have allowed 3/4 acre lots to build a subdivision there,
Mhm.
which would have been in the county. They don't get a final decision at planning. But they made an unfavorable
It's
recommendation.
on a floodplain, isn't it?
It is not all in the floodplain, but it does butt up against the river. And
Yeah.
the concern was they don't want a subdivision that close. They actually have a rule in county that you cannot even build anything within 250 feet of the river. So this property abutted the river. They felt
Yeah.
like it could be a danger to the river to build a subdivision of this size
With
at that
sewer
location.
and that
Yeah.
stuff going right
Yeah,
there.
so that they did it unfavorable. And then the big one that happened this one, we get a lot of comments on this. They voted, and I don't know if the correct word is they either adopted or approved, whatever you want to use, a future land use map for Bedford County.
Okay, now does the county commission get this presented and they vote on the final plan, or is this just planning commission only?
This is Planning Commission only because this
Okay.
is a guiding document. This is not a law. They can,
Yes.
as we do at the city, they're going to use this to guide what they do in the future, but they can override it at
Well,
any
this
point.
steers people toward a yes vote.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. You get a lot of yeses if you fit within what's shown on
Right.
this
So
map.
this is a very important document.
It is. Yeah, it is very important going forward. We had a couple questions. I want to point out a couple items on this map, which you can find on our Facebook feed. There's several of what are called, you got a corridor overlay district and then also a Shelbyville Gateway overlay district. Those are on the corridor side, that is 600 feet from either side
Right.
of the main highways that go through the county that have much higher regulation on them than the rest of the property in the county. You can't build a vinyl structure in that space. You cannot build even within 100 feet of that road. You cannot have a residential lot size of less than 3 acres. There's a number of other things. The reasoning with that is, hopefully, long term, going in the future, you still want to be able to drive down 231 from Murfreesboro and realize that you've hit a rural county and not feel like you're still in the city.
This is a cosmetic thing more than anything.
It is. It's to preserve and
the appearance that you're still rural.
The fancy word that he always uses, our planning director, is the rural view shed. He wants it to feel like you're still driving into a rural area.
Basically, you got a facade going up down 231 to make you feel like you're in farmland. Yeah, behind that, it don't matter.
Well, you still got to do 1 acre.
It's kind of like these big fireworks stands that you see down there around Mont Eagle.
Oh, they
got a board that in front of them that's like 75 feet tall, and you go in, it's a mobile unit.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Right.
So, but
same
it's
principle.
a visual thing as much as anything, but it does help so you don't have a bunch of development.
Why don't we just put a screen down the road and have a projector showing all these cows?
And then have big houses behind them?
Yeah. It doesn't really matter what we are. It's just what we look like.
Another question we got on this, there's several circles on here called rural village neighborhoods. And I don't have, it's a long definition of what that is, but basically that is, these are older areas that used to maybe be a small town or something. And this allows you to build up that area like it was a small town square. You could have some retail businesses up against the street. You could have some residential housing. You could just feel like you were in a small town.
Josh, I saw something, send me a picture earlier this week of an older home that somebody went into as an investment. Yeah. And this gentleman, I know him very well. He's a good guy. Took an old house that's probably built 80 years ago. And he basically went from the ground up, spent a lot of money on it, and he's got a jewel at the end of it. There's a lot of opportunities like that in the city of Shelbyville and in Bedford County for people, if they don't want to tear something down, it still sounds structurally. Yeah. You've got some valuable property there because people back in those days, the way the foundations were built, the structure of the basic structure of the home was built solid. But this gentleman took and he beautified it. He's got a masterpiece. We need a lot of that going on, and I think we need some incentives to get people to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know what that is, but otherwise you still have people, maybe they can't do it themselves, but they'll sell their property to somebody else, buy something else, and then there's somebody that'll come in and invest in recapturing that nostalgic look, but
rather than having them graze it to the ground and then build 3 duplexes.
Exactly.
So
that to me makes a whole lot more sense if we want to maintain the integrity of our history here.
Yeah. Yeah. So just overall on this map, there was a lot of negative comments I saw saying, "Oh, this is a way to bring in big development into Bedford County." The actual goal of this
is to not
bring in a bunch of big development in Bedford County. It's to preserve as much of the rural look and feel of the county as possible. So I know people don't believe that. They think everybody's all about the developer, but I do know, and I've talked extensively with the county planning department and with the director. He's concerned about preserving that rural, honestly, not bringing in a bunch of.
If you polled the average citizen in Bedford County, you're going to see it's about a 50-50 split.
Yeah,
honestly,
some people would rather look like Murfreesboro.
Exactly. So, some people want the small community feel to explode to a big city feel, and others want to actually draw down
the other
what
way.
We got. Yeah. So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, it is. So. Just real quick, we're just about the end of things here. Thursday, which was my other big meeting day, we've covered the big one, obviously, but at lunchtime, the school board approved their final budget amendment. That's just a cleanup that they do at the end of every year. There was nothing crazy in that. I got a copy of that. And then Thursday evening, the City Planning Commission, which I sat on, we had a big, massive 15-minute long meeting. There was only one item on the agenda. It was the waste transfer station, which had been on hold for the past 2 months. We got back the traffic study. We're just concerned to make sure that it didn't have any kind of a negative impact on traffic, that they didn't need to do any improvements. It did not. So that got approved unanimously. So they can begin work on that waste transfer station now, which both the city and the county need that to help with our solid waste fees. So,
okay.
And with that was every meeting that I went to of note this week in the city or the county. And before we hear about what's coming up next week, maybe we should hear from our sponsors.
Yes, our sponsors, Dennis Young Insurance and Leverage Power Washing. We'll be right back.
Get the results you want with the personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency, insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 1988.
All righty, welcome back in here to the weekend wrap-up show, the news that matters. Josh, what we got coming up?
We got a holiday week coming up.
Yes,
I believe
we do.
There's something with fireworks, I hear. So
Let me ask you a question, Josh.
Yeah.
Is taxpayers going to pay for the fireworks display this year?
Actually, we do. We spend a little bit. The city and the county both, I believe.
You got
contribute
to be
that.
kidding me. They went in together.
I think the county does. City definitely does because it's hosted at the
What's
city
this thing going to
park,
cost
so
us?
I don't want to give out a number because I don't remember. But
Pretty good
it's
bid.
not.
It's professional.
It's not super
10 grand.
expensive. Yeah, so it's somewhere in that.
Okay, all
neighborhood, I
right. So
think.
everybody's paid
Yeah.
for this. They might as well go out and enjoy it.
Yeah, go out and enjoy it. Yeah, it's at the it's at HV Griffin Park. The city one is. I know and I didn't bring my information, but War Trace also has one. I think were they the one doing one on a different day? Somebody's doing theirs
Yep.
on July 5th.
Yep.
And then Bell Buckle, I think, will have something. My neighborhood, we're doing our own barbecue. I mean, there's stuff going on all over the place.
Let me tell you
So,
about the park complex.
Yeah.
If you live nearby the park complex, you don't have to go inside the park complex.
right, because it's hard to
And
get
if
out
you're
at
in
the
the,
end.
yes, and if you're in the city limits and you have a good view of it, I encourage you not to go in there. Just stay at home
And
watch it.
Yeah.
But don't bring your car into the traffic flow because it's going to create a jam.
Yeah, it takes a long time to get out
So
there.
you can see it all over the city.
Oh, all over
pretty
town.
much,
Yeah. I'm up way on the west side. We can still,
Oh,
if we
yeah.
look, we can still see it.
Yeah.
But it's a ways off. The only actual meeting this week that I'll be going to is Tuesday. We've got a city council study session. There are only 106 pages in the packet I got on Friday, which that is the smallest packet I think I've gotten in.
So
as
I'm
long
going
as
to
I've been on
say
the
y'all
council,
will
so.
spend a minute per page. So you're going to go about an hour and a half.
It's possible. Yeah, I mean, it's really that sounds like a lot, but that's a light agenda for us. So, and there didn't look like anything crazy. I mean, there will be a lot of discussion. This is where
Sure.
we have our discussion.
Well, you have to.
So, yeah,
That's where representation starts taking place right there.
yeah. But this is the first council meeting where we're seeing a reflection of what we've been talking about at the planning side, where things in planning have slowed down. That's why it's such a small packet. There's only, I think, 2 rezoning things on here at all, and that's usually what ties up a lot of the
Right.
time. So, yeah, that's kind of light. So that's other than that, fireworks. That's all I got going
All
on.
right.
this week.
One
So,
meeting in fireworks. That's pretty light load, Josh.
Yeah, that's okay. I had 8 this week.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
one
So
is good.
So what are you going to do with all your spare time?
I hope nap maybe.
Okay. Good plan.
I would take a
Guys,
nap.
thanks for watching this morning's show.
Yeah.
We'll be back same place on July the 5th, the day after.
Yeah, the day after the fireworks, we'll
Yeah,
be right
so
back
hopefully
here.
we're
same
still
place,
around to
same-
talk about it.
I hope so. I'm staying inside. I don't
All
want to
right.
hit by fireworks.
Good
so,
idea.
yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Again, thanks our sponsors, Dennis Young Insurance and Leverage Power Washing.